Hello, Buff fans. Troy and I are back with another episode of CU Sports Report podcast. Another Thursday, another beautiful day in December. It's not the off season quite yet. The Alamo Bowl is coming up. Colorado is hitting the portal hard. There's a multitude of guys that we'll review today that the Buffs are scouting. 13 Buffs have entered the transfer portal, so a lot of movement within the roster, and the Buffs are trying to fill some roles that have been are much needed either through graduation or through the portal. Travis Hunter has been named a Heisman finalist upon also winning the Lot Impact Award as well as the Paul Horning Award. So the last time we talked, transfer portal, Travis. I'm going to New York this weekend. And yeah, it's been a chill week. Basketball, Buffs played CSU. You were at that game. Women's played Southern Utah and Denver, both wins. So a lot to break down, a lot to recap. But I will start with who the Buffs are scouting in the transfer portal. There's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys that I have listed from this past week that have popped up on my timeline. And we'll start with NC State transfer, Casey Concepcion. He has Colorado in his top 6 schools, as well as Alabama, Florida State, Miami, South Carolina, Texas A&M. So a lot of, big, talented programs. 53 catches, 460 yards, and 6 touchdowns this prior season. Definitely going to be scouting him hard because the Buffs do need a wide receiver with all the graduation they have with Travis, Will, LeJohntay, Jimmy. They're gonna need a few wide receivers. Um, Jacksonville State linebacker Reginald Hughes will visit Colorado this weekend, December 16th to the 18th. He had a breakout season this year, 82 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Oklahoma center Joshua Bates visiting this weekend. Well, the weekend after this. So not this weekend, but the next weekend. He was a 4-star recruit out of Durango, Colorado. So some local ties there. Durango, I've ever been to Durango. It's a fun place. It's a cute little mountain town down in southern Colorado. If you're not familiar with Colorado's geography, but that's not what we're here for. Next wide receiver, Eric Rivers is visiting next weekend as well. He was first team All Conference USA in this year, 62 receptions, 1,172 yards, and 12 touchdowns. That is a lot of production, and Colorado knows, similarly with LeJohntay, how to turn those Florida boys around FIU. It seems like a pretty linear move, but we'll see. He's visiting this next weekend, so hopefully the Buffs can put in a good word with him and try to get him to come to Boulder. Another wide receiver from Tulsa will visit next weekend as well. He was the ACC Freshman of the Year with 30 receptions, 588 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But USC, Mississippi State, Utah, and Arizona are also on his visitation list. So he has a lot of interest in the portal and has a lot of potential as a young wide receiver. Defensive tackle from Fresno State, Gabriel Lightfoot is visiting CU this weekend. Started in 72 games for Fresno State over the last 3 seasons, very experienced and a big body up front that the Buffs need to address. I feel like Shane Cokes is leaving, BJ Green is graduating. Yeah, there's a handful and Dan Hayes also entered the portal, even though those are 2 edge guys. But loading up on the interior, interesting, appealing one here. Wide receiver Caleb Odom visiting CU this weekend. And he used to play with Julian Lewis at Carrollton High School. So could be a potential reunion in Boulder, could be an appealing offer for Caleb Odom, who is a very, very talented wide receiver, of course. He played at Alabama, so that is in and of itself a impressive feat. Also another Alabama prospect. Defensive tackle Jaheim Otis is visiting Colorado this weekend as well. It's gonna be a party in Boulder this weekend. There's so many guys visiting.
Yes, it is.
6'5", 325 pounds, 57 career tackles, 5 pass breakups, and 1.5 sacks. I think this could be a really lucrative get, of course. This is one that was reported by Pete Thamel, and there's been a lot of interest for Otis because of his size and his experience. That Colorado can potentially get him, and that would be a huge addition up front. Um, 6'5", 325 pounds is a nice physical presence that you would need in the front seven. And then last but not least, we talked about this last week, Colorado picking up a quarterback in the portal because Julian Lewis is young, but there is potential there. But Liberty quarterback Caden Salter is planning on visiting Colorado. He was a Conference USA MVP in 2023. This past year, he completed 147 passes for 1,886 yards, 15 touchdowns, and then on the ground, he's capable of using his legs, 567 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. So a lot of guys that are visiting Colorado this weekend. The Buffs quickly went into the transfer portal and plucking a lot of guys that they see are going to fit within the roster and guys that they need with the 13 transfer portal departures as well. Who are you excited about on this list? I like Joshua Bates, the Oklahoma center. I think that's an interesting addition for them and could be. And you have Cash Cleveland as well and still have Hank Stelinkus, but it'll be interesting to see if they were to get him, what that competition would look like. Is this just a depth piece or is this a piece that you would install right away? But who do you like on this list? And yeah.
Yeah, Bates is a good call. You could slide one of those guys that you just mentioned over to guard too. There's a lot of flexibility on the interior there, so that's a good call. I really like the guys up front defensively, Gabriel Lightfoot and Jaheim Otis. I think those would be two solid pickups, established players who've been productive. Obviously, Jaheim Otis, talented kid coming from Alabama. Gabriel Lightfoot, productive in the Mountain West last year for a Fresno State defense that was one of the more stout in that conference. So I think those two would be big. I really love Eric Rivers. He is a great receiver, fifth in the country in receiving yards, fourth in receiving touchdowns. So already one of the top wideouts in college football. It'd be really great to see him come to Boulder. Casey Concepcion, like you mentioned, he's a really talented kid. His numbers were down a bit this year. They had some quarterback troubles up at NC State. Grayson McCall got hurt. CJ Bailey was starting as a true freshman for most of the year. But as a freshman in 2023, Concepcion had 71 catches for 839 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he's a really, really talented kid. He would be a great addition. And then I love Caden Salter. I will get my bias out of the way. I love Caden Salter. Caden Salter, he had a bad year. Liberty as a whole kind of had a bad 2024. Expectations were really high. They didn't meet them. But bar none, this guy was one of the most fun players to watch in college football in 2023. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. His 2023 numbers, he completed 61% of his passes for 2,876 yards, 32 touchdowns, led his conference, and only 6 picks. He also ran for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in 2023. This guy is a dual threat. He's not the purest passer. He's not the most polished passer. So it would be a different look than what somebody like Shedeur gives you. But he's a great athlete, really can hurt defenses with his legs. It would be great, I think, for Julian Lewis to come in and be able to learn from a guy who has experience, who's had success, to be able to sit, and kind of learn on the bench in practice from a guy who's played at this level for a long time and is a really, really good football player. There's a notion kind of around that Julian should just on social. Maybe I read too many Twitter comments, but there's a notion that Julian Lewis should come in and just should be given the starting job, and I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. He's a smaller guy. He's 17. He's going to be 17 when the season starts next year. He doesn't turn 18 until September. So I think it would be really, really beneficial for Juju to come in and learn from a guy like Caden Salter if he were to come here. And I think that some of the juice that you lose from obviously what Shedeur gives you as a thrower, but the juice that you lose from losing Travis on the outside, no matter who they get at receiver, obviously they're going to have Draylon Miller back, Omarion Miller back, hopefully, coming off of the injury. And then whichever portal receivers that come in, but Caden Salter is able to replace some of that explosiveness with what he can do as a creator, with what he can do in the run game, what he can do with his legs. And he is when he's playing well, he is just an awesome player to watch. So that was that I was very giddy about that visit being announced.
Yeah, that was certainly one that piqued my interest as well, just because we don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. And if they do get him, it seems like that would be a more conducive fit for what they want out of a quarterback, a guy who's ready to play, who's played at the collegiate level. Yes, Julian Lewis has amounted to all these incredible stats at Carleton High School, but there is some youth there and there's some questions on, is he ready to play at this level? They could use that first year just to develop a little bit more, figure out his footing, and just, get more acclimated to a collegiate offense and that style of play. So Colorado has a similar notion in potentially picking up Caden Salters. So we'll see if that can be Colorado's next potential future quarterback, and what NIL deals they can sort out for him in order for him to get to Colorado. But I guess it's like wide open now. You pay for players. Everyone pays for players now. It's no secret. It's no secret, but we'll definitely see some more movement as the offseason goes on and who commits and what the future holds for Colorado. In the meantime, Alamo Bowl is coming up. Carde Smith and Mantrez Walker plan on joining the Buffs for their bowl practices, which begin on Monday, the 16th. So they'll be getting acclimated early with Colorado. As I mentioned, 13 Buffs, well, 14 have entered the portal. Just some notable names: Cordell Russell. It's interesting because I talked to Shador at the beginning of the season, well, in July at Big 12 Media Days. I was like, who is wide receiver that you really are, relying on, or someone that you see could have a really big year? And he said Cordell Russell. And of course, we just did not see him. He was injured, just didn't have, the opportunity that he wanted at Colorado. So fortunate to see him go. Tyler Johnson, offensive line, didn't get a lot of action this year. I don't believe any action at all this season. Assad Wasim, young 4-star, 3-star. I forgot what Rivals listed him, but he was a good pickup in the freshman class. Didn't get any action this past season. Dan Hayes was an interesting one. I know he was injured. I know that defensive end rotation was pretty deep, and I thought he was, he was one of the guys that we watched, like, oh, he would make plays, he was effective. Seemed like he had a more significant role than the other people that are listed on this transfer portal list. Were you surprised by Hayes? Was that just me?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I mean, anytime a starting caliber player goes in the portal, because look, Dion has said this before too, but and a lot of people have said this, but usually when guys are in the portal, there's a reason they're in the portal because they weren't playing a lot of the time. And then for some of the top players, it's that somebody wants to give them more money and whatnot. So anytime you see kind of a starter in the portal, it's a bit of a surprise. But look, he was injured. That's a really crowded room. There's so much. It would have been impossible to predict the amount of talent that ended up being productive in that room. Like Tajay McCoy played really well this year. Keaton Wade played really well this year. We'll see if he sticks around. His brother is in the transfer portal, Destin Wade. Keaton is not yet, so we'll see if he sticks around. But he was very good. If he decides to return, Sam Okunlola, he'll be back. He played really, really well. So, um, you know, for Dayon Hayes, to no fault of his own because of the injury, other guys stepped up in his place, and now he is, if all those guys are back, is likely looking at a somewhat diminished rotational role. Not that he would be on the bench, but it would be a rotational role. And so it was a little surprising, but I do see the logic behind it for him.
Mhm. Yeah, Walter Taylor as well. They're just losing some quarterback depth. Ryan Staub still sticking around. interested to see what kind of role he serves next year. Probably back up again. I mean, he's like, I can imagine him like in a Tulsa situation, maybe like a Conference USA situation where he can like, actually get reps and play. But so far he's still with the Buffs.
He's also
Um,
a guy that he's also a guy that this is not reporting, but if Shador doesn't play for the entirety of the bowl game, Ryan Staub would get a chance to play and kind of showcase. Like I think Ty Thompson is doing this at Tulane. Darian Mensah, Tulane starter, just transferred, and Ty Thompson is going to transfer, but he's using the bowl game as like a showcase for himself to go into the portal with some game film. So that could be something that Staub could be getting in the bowl game. Maybe Shador will play the whole game. I don't know. Maybe he won't. Some top prospects play a quarter, play a half, play three quarters. So we know that Shador is going to play. How much we don't know, but if he doesn't, then Ryan Staub could be getting an opportunity there.
mhm. I'm excited. Got to figure out that trip as well. We'll pivot to Travis Hunter being named a Heisman finalist. We all saw this coming. Um, I'm so, so, so excited to go to New York. But despite my excitement and going to that trip, I've never done Heisman. I mean, all of us in the CU beat, at least this is before I was born, 1994, when Rashad Salam won the Heisman. And I've never done this before. So I'm really excited to be a part of this and be able to go to New York. We all knew that Travis was going to be selected as a Heisman finalist. I had two articles prepared. Travis Hunter being a Heisman finalist and Shador and Travis going to the Heisman ceremony together. Shador Sanders being named a Heisman finalist as well. Dylan Gabriel, great quarterback. Cam Ward, also a fantastic quarterback. Uh, Shador this season, 3,926 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Cam Ward, 4,123 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Cam Ward, fantastic quarterback. He's the reason why Miami was on their undefeated streak at the beginning of the season. He's the reason why they're still in games. I remember watching the Cal game with Cam Ward, and I'm like, he's just going to do it. He's just going to fucking do it. He's going to win the game. And of course, he won that game, and they're both coached under the same quarterback coach. But Dylan Gabriel was one I was like, okay. I remember when we talked earlier in the year, it's like, you don't want to do this thing. You mentioned you don't want to do this thing where you give the number one team, the best quarterback on the number one team in the country, take it to the Heisman ceremony. Dylan Gabriel, less passing yards than Shador, 3,558, 28 touchdowns. Shador had 35. Dylan Gabriel, 6 interceptions this year. So I want to hear what if Shador Sanders had a case for the Heisman. I think there was certainly a case here, but what maybe set the edge over Gabriel having a ticket rather than Shador having a ticket to the Heisman?
Yeah, Shador obviously has a case for the Heisman. There's no question about that. I am glad, as I said earlier in the season, that we are not just handing the Heisman to the best quarterback on the best team. Sometimes that is how it should be. This year was not one of those years, and I'm glad that it's not going to be. I assume that I think Dylan Gabriel's a pretty comfortable fourth in this kind of running here. The wins is certainly a part of it, right? Like that, I do think that that is part of a smaller part than I think some other people give it. But then there's the extreme of, well, he's the quarterback of the undefeated team. And I think that that's kind of simplifying it too much. And then there's the other side where it's like, well, winning doesn't matter. It's just the best players. And that's not true either. That's called an NFL draft big board. It's not like that's the Heisman is somewhere in the middle, right? So him being undefeated, the quarterback of an undefeated Oregon team is certainly part of it. And I think that Dylan Gabriel played better, not necessarily better than Shador, but he improved as the season went along. He was phenomenal in the Big Ten championship game. He had 4 touchdowns. I think his QBR was 95.4 out of 100. So that left a lasting impression on voters. I'm sure some of the voters that were kind of holding out their ballots until that final Sunday, Monday after the championship games. Um, and then I think the negative, Dylan Gabriel didn't take negative plays. You mentioned the interceptions, the sacks is another big thing, not all of which is the quarterback's praise or the quarterback's fault or the quarter, but I think that that's part of it. And then you see this in the NBA all the time. You see this in the NFL all the time. The fact that Travis Hunter is most likely going to win the Heisman hurts Shador. Right or wrong, I'm not making a case for right or wrong. There's a reason that Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were never in the MVP conversation when they played on the same team. It does not mean that they were not the best players, but there is a reason that they were not in the MVP conversation when they played together. That's just how it works. It intrinsically having another player that is that good takes away from your case in the minds of a lot of voters. And I think that hurt Shador in this case. Not that he doesn't have a case. He dragged this Colorado offense through a lot of this season when the play calling was up and down, when the offensive line was shuffling around, receivers were hurt at times, no running game the whole time. We talked about on this pod, it felt like week after week how many times that Shador's hero ball plays, just scrambling, playmaking, kind of improvising, how many times that bailed this offense out. And that, on top of his great stats, that is his Heisman case. We'll see if he finishes fifth, sixth. I don't know where he's going to land. Scadaboo will be in there. Tyler Warren, the great tight end from Penn State, he'll be up there. So we'll see where he finishes. But Shador definitely has a case, but I don't have any problem with putting him at 4 in this race. But I don't think that it is some highway robbery that he might have been nudged down to 5th or 6th.
Yeah, it's a very close differential between Gabriel and Shador, and Gabriel has, as you mentioned, led Oregon to an undefeated season, and Dan Lanning and the Ducks are having a phenomenal year, and they're contending for a national championship. I'm so excited for the college football playoff. It's gonna be
Yeah.
exciting. Do you think Penn State has the easiest path, or is everyone just?
Yes. Penn State
Yeah,
has
they
the
do.
easiest path. Um, I think all of these teams are live. I don't think that we don't need to go into this because it's not C related, but all of these teams are live. It would not surprise me if any of these teams lost. Like I don't think that SMU and Boise State is some walkover path. I do think those teams are good football teams. I think SMU has the firepower to play with Penn State. I'm not picking them, but I am picking Tennessee over Ohio State. Looking. Um, but I do think all of these teams are live. I think it's going to be competitive. The campus games is going to be great. Indiana Notre Dame in-state rivalry is excellent.
Lit.
Um, yes. So that'll be fun. Yeah, I'm excited.
Those start next week. No, this weekend is
Next Saturday, 21st.
oh,
20th,
okay.
21st.
Okay.
Next Army Navy on Saturday. It's the only college football. I love Army Navy.
Oh. Um, okay, Travis Hunter, pivoting back to him, there's a broadcast tonight on ESPN. Hunter is up for the Benerick Award, the Balintikoff Award, and the Maxwell Award. And Chatoria McMillan is also up for the Balintikoff Award. And Shador Sanders is up for the Davy O'Brien Award. So 2 buffs that will be claiming more hardware. Shador already claimed the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award this past week. And what was that? Was that in Vegas? I don't know where it was, but
That was
he.
because the guy said next Giants quarterback at the ceremony. Did you see that?
Oh.
When he was giving the award, he was like the next quarterback of the New York Giants.
I feel like it's gonna be the Raiders, man. We'll see. There's a lot of
Yeah.
smoke with both of those teams at the moment, but
Raiders also like I don't see what their path is to winning any more football games with Desmond Ridder playing quarterback, but that's
oh no.
not the here nor there.
Yeah, yeah. Antonio Pierce seems like he's kind of
As long as Brock Bowers can keep dragging my fantasy team through the playoffs, then
backs. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey's hurt, but I won't get into my fantasy woes and just 49ers this year. Big game tonight.
Putting the stake in the 49ers tonight. I'm excited.
I'm so pumped for that game. I
Throw
think
some-
we recapped everything football related, unless I'm missing something. We're gonna hold BYU discussions and breakdowns for next week, or maybe in the week after that, leading up to the game. It's gonna be Christmas. Well, it's not gonna
Fun
be, it's
game.
gonna be the day after Christmas when we do this.
Fun game. That'll be a fun
Yeah.
game. Get into that.
And yeah, it seems like Coach Prime emphasized in the press conference that everyone's going to play. He's continued to emphasize that, and we'll see how much Shador plays, what kind of situation they want. You mentioned Ryan Staub can potentially get in there and showcase, but it seems like Colorado. I mean, who wouldn't want to win this game, finish the season 10-3? Um,
10
yeah,
wins is a big deal. 10 wins is a big deal in college football. That
it
is a big.
is. I would prefer, this is my personal preference. It would have been cool to see. I know this is like the Big 12 matchup. This is like the Big 12 championship. This is the secondary Big 12 championship. But Cam Ward versus Shador in the Holiday Bowl, that was what I wanted. That's what I envisioned. But I know that was a stretch.
Yeah, it would have been fireworks. It's hard for these bowls to schedule matchups like that now though, because then people just opt out of them a lot. And it sounds this year across the country like there are not going to be as many opt-outs, which is great. I hate opt-outs. I love bowl season. It's one of my favorite times of year, but it sounds like Cam Ward's going to play. Sounds like Jalen Milroe is going to play in Alabama's bowl. I don't know if he's coming out to the NFL yet or not, but um, so yeah.
Yeah. People are playing the bowl games this year. Exciting. Basketball. We'll start with the Rocky Mountain Showdown. Colorado put quite a beat down on the Rams. The Rams beat them last year with, all the future NBA talent down the roster. They couldn't get it done in Fort Collins. The Rams come down to the CU Event Center and just basically whoop them 72-55. You were at the game. You said Nate Clifford didn't play very well. Who was your star of the show, and how did Colorado hold the Rams to such a disappointing evening?
Well, I thought defensively that CU played really, really well. This was their best showing of the season on the defensive end by far. After the game against Pacific last Monday, I think, last week before
Mm-hmm.
CSU, Tad Boyle said, I thought, he said, we don't have a defensive stopper. I'm paraphrasing. He said, we don't have a defensive stopper. I thought Andre was going to be that guy. And then he went on to say that how poorly Andre played on defense against Pacific. And Andre Akmovsky responded to the challenge. He took the Neek Clifford assignment, and he was great. He made everything difficult. Neek came into this game. I mean, we know how talented of a player Neek is, but he's really polished his game since going up to Fort Collins. He came into the Rocky Mountain Showdown averaging 19 points and 11 rebounds a game. He finished this one with 10 on 4 for 15 shooting. He was just 1 for 9 in the first half.
Oof.
So he struggled all night. This and then that one. If you shut down Neek, it's really hard for this CSU team to score. They don't have a ton of talent on the interior. Jalen Lake's a really good player on the perimeter, but other than that, they don't have a ton of scoring threats on the outside either. They really rely on Neek and on Jalen Lake for a lot of their offense. And Andre Akmovsky shutting down Neek was a big, big factor in this game. CU also dominated on the boards. You really felt their length in this game defensively on the glass, just bothering CSU with their length, their size. Just made everything difficult. I think they were plus 11 on the boards in this game. And then Bangkok Dak was a beast. He was a monster in this game. He was huge for CU. Both ends of the floor. He finished with 16 points. He shot 7 for 8 from the field. He knocked down a 3. He was massive, and he only played 18 minutes. So that was big. I thought Tad Boyle made a really, really smart lineup change. He went with RJ Smith as the starter at shooting guard. Trevor Baskin came off the bench, and the reason for that, he said, was CU had had so much trouble starting games, right? They were down early against Pacific. They were down early against Northern Colorado. They were down early in a couple of the other games at the start of this year. And he said that's because when the second unit came in, there was a huge drop off. And so he opted to start RJ Smith to bring Trevor Baskin off the bench. Banga came off the bench, and that gave that unit just some more creation, some more playmaking, some more, helps them defensively, helps them on the boards, obviously with Baskin's activity on that end of the floor. And that really helped them in this game. There was no drop off when the second unit came in. C went on a 16-0 run in the first half to push the lead up to almost 20 points, and they never really looked back. CSU never was able to really make the game that close at any point. So that was a really nice tweak from Tad, I think. And he's kind of starting to find, it feels like they're starting to find some answers a little bit. And that was, I think, the most encouraging part of this game.
Yeah, I outscored them 43-21 in the first half. Colorado State did outscore Colorado 34-29, but it didn't matter because they weren't shooting well. 31.3 from the field of Colorado State, and just 7 of 27, 25.9% from three. Yeah, I was just looking at the stat sheet and I was like, wow, Bangkok Dak. This is the Bangkok Dak game. This is what we want. This is
Played
what we
great.
need from him.
He
Was
really, really well.
he was probably more because I think Colorado's had a hard time this year getting inside, at least in the tournament, trying to find some creation to paint. I know Elijah Malone has been effective in there, but there's just been like some back screens and they throw the ball to Bangkok that and he's up for the lob and they don't finish the lob. Was this a game where it's like, okay, he's connecting a little bit more, there's a little bit more aggressiveness in the paint. He's able to actually get some shots down, make some easy shots in inside the box.
Yeah, they didn't really have anybody for him on the offensive glass, on the glass on either end. But they didn't really have a matchup for him when he was playing with one of the other bigs, whether it was Elijah Malone or whether it was Asan Joe. There was just nobody to guard him. He had a bunch of dunks. He knocked down a three. He was a big part of that 16-0 run that I mentioned. He scored 4 straight points to start that run, and then he finished it with a nice jumper. So you can kind of see his offensive skill set coming along. He's not the most polished, like he's not a three-level scorer or anything, but he can pop out. He can hit a three now. He's much better as a roller. He's much better as a screener, as a roller, getting downhill, playing above the rim, finishing at the rim. He's a lot better at that. We know on defense that the shot blocking with his length, he's got to get a little bit better out on the perimeter still. And Tad Boyle has echoed that also. But his defense, his rim protection was huge in the win against Pacific. I think he had 4 blocks in that game. So that was big. And yeah, it feels like that he's kind of finding his spots offensively where, hey, I can get a lob here. I can get out in transition and get an easy two here. I can roll to the basket hard. The help is late. Now I'm getting a dunk here. Oh, I'm on the weak side and the guy guarding me is a lot smaller. I can go get an offensive rebound and get an easy two here. It's not like he's not posting people up and just getting buckets, but he's finding his spots to contribute, finding his spots to impact the game, in a lot of ways, scoring, rebounding, all that kind of stuff. So really encouraging game, and I think it's been a really encouraging couple of weeks for him.
Mm-hmm. Colorado coming together slowly but surely, and still 7-2. It's a good
Yeah,
position to be in. Big 12 is really competitive
tough one
conference,
tomorrow.
as we all know, and they're not too far behind their other Big 12 competitors in conference play at the moment.
Tough one tomorrow.
Um,
So I have to go to state. Tough.
yeah,
That'll
so I
be
have to go to state and then Bellarmine on December 21st. Both those games are home, which is good. But you mentioned that South Dakota State is one of the more talented teams in the Summit Conference and potentially have a ticket to the NCAA tournament in March because they are that good. They're a surprising upset team. They're one of the teams that you're like, should I pick them in my bracket? maybe.
South Dakota State is going to be the best team that CU plays in the non-conference outside of Maui, no question.
Mm.
Which the bar for that is fairly low, to be clear. But they they will be the best non-conference team that plays in Boulder this year.
Better than UNC? Or did,
Yes.
okay.
Even though UNC beat them, I stand by that.
Pivoting to women's basketball, they are coming off 2 wins against Southern Utah, 76-59, but quite the beatdown on them. And Denver, 78-61, kind of an in-state rivalry kind of thing, but not the same as CSU. The Buffs are heading into conference play 9-2, and their first opponent will be West Virginia at home on the 21st. But going back to those games, at least against Southern Utah, um, I haven't been able to attend any of the games this season, but hopefully with one of my days off, I can go up to Boulder and watch a couple of these games. But for Southern Utah, Frida Foreman had another good, not as good as her prior game to this when she put up 25 points, but 15, 6 of 8, 15 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 2 or 2 from three. Kind of a low scoring game, except the Oregon zone did put up 20 points, 8 of 14, three-pointers made and got to the line and went 1 for 1 from the free throw line. Yeah, I mean, Southern Utah is not really a threatening team when you kind of go and look at it from paper, but Colorado did a fair job in this matchup, held them to 44 shooting, did well, out rebounding them 39-20, 42 bench points. I mean, Colorado runs a pretty deep rotation with all of this transfer talent, so you'd want that from all of your non-starters, but 42 out of Southern Utah's 28 bench points. Shot 51.7% from the field, 36.8 from three. Overall, consistent and quality game from Colorado. Outscored them for 3 quarters, except the last one when Southern Utah scored 18 points and Colorado scored 17. But at that point, Colorado already had this one in the bag. Any notes from you from this game before we pivot to Denver? It's a little bit more intriguing matchup. I mean, these kind of similar scores, but anything that you saw from this game, you're like, okay.
Just from both games, I think, and I know that, I mean, we'll get into the numbers from Denver in a second, but from both games, I was impressed. Obviously, the rebounding is big. You mentioned plus 19 against Southern Utah. They were plus 20 against Denver as well, another 17-point win there. And then I was impressed just with the way, just with them figuring it out. They had before that Southern Utah game, Kendall Wetta and Kennedy Sanders, their 2 point guards, ran into each other in practice, and they both have concussions,
Oh,
which is not great for any players, but especially when they are your only 2 point guards on the roster. So they started Johanna Tedder at point guard in both of these games. The turnovers were way up, and both of them 15 against Denver, 17 against Southern Utah. But for them to be able to still piece together an offense without somebody who's more of a natural at running the system, get Lior Garzon involved, as you said, get Frida Foreman involved. She had a couple of nice games, had a not really nice game against Southern Utah. Get Jade Masagayo involved, all of these supporting pieces. Ayana Johnson had a big day against Denver. That was really nice to see. So and we've talked about this before with this team, just different people stepping up. Maybe it's not your usual role, Joanna Tedder, starting point guard. But can you step up? Can you give the team serviceable play in that role? Thankfully now CU does have a lot of days off, 9 more days off. I think it was 11 or 10 total days off between the Denver game and that conference opener against West Virginia. So hopefully Kendall and Kennedy Sanders can make it back for that. But I was just impressed with the way that they were able to kind of piece it together, come out and take care of business in convincing fashion. Even though the opponents may not have been most formidable or talented of opponents, just the ability to come out and handle business despite a very unique and difficult injury situation to deal with.
Yeah, that's an interesting circumstance. I did not realize that they were dealing with that. And hopefully they're able to get both of their point guards back because West Virginia is 9-1 and their only loss is
Very
against
good.
number 5 Texas, and it was a 78-73 loss. So they only lost by 5
They're
points
very,
against one
very
of the
good.
best teams in the country. Yeah, they're really good this year, really efficient offensively. Scored, I mean, Niagara, but 110 points against Niagara and 83 points against Texas A&M, 82 against Pitt, 82 against Boise State, which is a team that Colorado lost to, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes. So Colorado is just getting thrown right into conference play, but as you mentioned, they have a lot of days off, so hopefully that'll be enough healing time. And yeah, Buffs are 7-2, 9-2. No, men are 7-2, women are
Yes.
9-2. And yeah, we'll see how conference play shakes down. It's going to be, I mean, the Big 12 is equally as formidable as the men's Big 12 with a lot of dominant teams, a lot of scrappy teams. It's always going to be a dogfight in the Big 12, both on the men's and women's side. Men's will become more games until we see the bloodbath that is the Big 12 conference. So that is cool. And
Starting with Iowa State, who they got to sneak
woohoo!
already.
Oh man, no, they're a fantastic basketball team. There's going to be a lot of great basketball to watch, and hopefully we can all take a trip out to the Kansas game because I've never been to Allen Fieldhouse before. Um,
Oh,
little road trip. Seems like Nigel, our photographer, is really gearing for us to all go together. So we'll see if all that shakes down. There's much more to discuss, book, but I'll be in New York. I'm very excited. I have a whole outfit plan, even though you guys aren't interested in my outfit. It's a great outfit. And yeah, I invested a lot of time and money. This is my own personal money I'm investing into this trip. And I think it's going to be great. And we're going to make the most of it. And it's in Times Square. And it's going to be just an absolute blast. All the CU reporters are going to be there. It's going to be a good time. We'll give you guys a recap next time we talk on this podcast. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week, unless Troy, you have any final send offs. Peace. Go Niners. Scared of the Rams.
this is
Wow.
my Niners putting a fork in the Niners fireworks right here.
That's yeah, he specifically did that to spite me. Every week he tries to spite me. And I'm speeding into the microphone because this needs to end.
That's great. I enjoy it.
Alas. All right. See you guys next week. Bye.